next speaker is Shauna Shapiro. She is a clinical psychologist, a professor, and an expert in mindfulness. She has been training intensively in mindfulness for over 20 years now, having trained in Thailand, Nepal, and the West. She's been published over 150 times. Her newest book, The Art and Science of Mindfulness, just came out last week. Her TED Talk just came out a couple weeks ago. So please join me in welcoming Shauna Shapiro.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. Good morning. I'm hearing a lot of echo. I hope it's okay for you guys. It was interesting. Someone earlier said, gosh, I feel kind of sorry for you. You have to follow Dharma Mitra. Aren't you nervous? And I said, I'm so grateful because he created this state of consciousness for us that's such a beautiful place to step into. So I feel really grateful to be here. And I want to take a moment just to arrive here with you. So I want to invite you to allow your eyes to close and just take a moment to feel the resonance of the presence and the awareness in your body that you've been cultivating all weekend. And just take a moment to wiggle your toes and feel your feet. Feel both legs. Feel your seat in the chair, your spine straight and upright. Softening your shoulders. Letting the awareness pour down both arms into the palms of the hands. Feeling your belly, your chest, your throat. Softening your jaw, softening your face, softening your eyes, your forehead. And just get a sense of your whole body sitting here. We're just arriving, just arriving. You can let your eyes open. Good. Thank you. So I want to invite you to reflect on the following teaching that I learned from my teacher, Jack Kornfield. He said, if in rush hour traffic you can remain perfectly calm, if you can see your neighbors travel to fantastic places without a twinge of jealousy, if you can love everyone around you all of the time, and if you can always find happiness wherever you are, then you're probably a dog. Right? We hold ourselves to these unrealistic standards of perfection. And then we judge ourselves when we don't live up to them. The thing is, we're not supposed to be perfect. Perfection isn't possible. But transformation is. That's why we're here. All of us have the capacity to transform, to change, to learn, to grow. And one of the most effective vehicles I've found for this process of transformation is mindfulness. So my own journey into mindfulness was quite unexpected. When I was 17, I had spinal fusion surgery. So I had a metal rod put in my spine. And I went from this kind of healthy, active teenager to lying in a hospital bed, unable to walk. And during the many months of rehabilitation, I tried to figure out how to live in this body that could no longer do what it used to do. The physical pain was difficult, but worse was the fear and the loneliness. And I simply, at 17, didn't have tools to cope. So I began searching for something that could help me, and eventually this search led me to a monastery in Thailand for my first meditation retreat. So at the monastery, I didn't speak any Thai, and the monks didn't speak much English, but I kind of understood that mindfulness had something to do with paying attention in the present moment. My only instruction was to feel the breath coming in and out of my nose. So I began. 1 breath, 2 breaths, My mind wandered off. I brought it back. One breath, two, it wandered again, sucked into the past or lost in the future. And no matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't stay present. Now, this was frustrating because I thought meditation was supposed to feel like this, and instead, it felt more like this. You know what I'm talking about, right? Being present isn't so easy. In fact, check it out for yourself, right? I've been speaking for 3 minutes? Have you noticed your mind has wandered? Don't raise your hand, I already know. All of our minds wander. Research from Harvard shows the mind wanders on average 47% of the time. 47%. That is almost half of your waking life that you're missing, that you're not here. So part of mindfulness is simply training the mind in how to be here where we already are. Like right now. So I want to invite you again just to take a moment, close your eyes, and just feel your own body. Feel your own breath, softening maybe 5% more, and just being here. Good. So you can let your eyes open, but stay connected to this body. Allow the mind and body to be fully here. And yet it's not so easy. Back at the monastery, I was trying hard to do just that, to just stay present. And no matter how hard I tried, my mind kept wandering off. And at this point, I really started to judge myself, right? What's wrong with you? You're terrible at this. Why are you even here? You're a fake. And then not only was I judging myself, I started judging everyone, even the monks. Why are they just sitting here? Shouldn't they be doing something? Not a high point in my life. Luckily, a monk from London arrived who spoke English. And as I shared with him my struggles, he looked at me and he said, "Oh dear, you're not practicing mindfulness. You're practicing judgment, impatience, frustration." And then he said 5 words that I'll never forget. What you practice grows stronger. What you practice grows stronger. We know this now with neuroplasticity. Our repeated experiences shape our brain. We can actually sculpt and strengthen our synaptic connections based on repeated practice. What you practice grows stronger. When you look at the brains of London taxi drivers, this is kind of a famous study they did, the visual spatial mapping part of the brain is bigger and stronger. They've been practicing navigating the 25,000 streets of London all day long. When you look at the brains of meditators, the areas related to attention, compassion, emotional intelligence, happiness, are bigger and stronger. It's called cortical thickening, the growth of new neurons in response to repeated practice. What we practice grows stronger. The monk explained to me that if I'm meditating with judgment and frustration, I'm just growing judgment and frustration, right? He helped me understand that mindfulness has a lot to do with not the sitting meditation, as we just heard right here. It has a lot to do with how we're paying attention. He said it's like these loving arms that welcome everything, even the messy, imperfect parts. And he said that we're meditating all the time, not just when we're sitting, but in every moment, we're growing something. In every moment, we're practicing. Right now, you're practicing something. So the question really becomes, what do you want to practice? What do you want to grow? When I left Thailand, I wanted to keep practicing mindfulness, and I wanted to understand it scientifically. So I began a PhD program, eventually became a professor, and I've spent the past 20 years investigating the effects of mindfulness across a wide range of populations, including women with breast cancer, veterans with PTSD, stressed out college students, high-level business executives. And over, the data showed 2 key things. First, mindfulness works. It's good for you. It strengthens our immune functioning, it helps us sleep better, it reduces cortisol. When we published our first study back in 1998, there were only a handful of studies. Now, as you can see in the graph, there are thousands of studies showing the beneficial effects of mindfulness. It's good for us. The second thing we learned was quite unexpected. Almost all the people we are working with, regardless of their age, their gender, their background, were talking about the same thing. This underlying sense of, I'm not good enough. I'm not okay. I'm not living this life right. There's something wrong with me. This universal sense of shame. And we all know what they were talking about because all of us feel it. And worse, we have the mistaken belief that if we shame ourselves, if we beat ourselves up, that somehow we'll improve. And what I've learned is that shame doesn't work. Shame never works. It can't work. Literally, physiologically, it can't work because when we feel shame, the centers of the brain that have to do with learning and growth shut down. So this fMRI shows your brain, there it goes. This fMRI shows your brain on shame. And basically what happens is the amygdala triggers a flood of cortisol and norepinephrine to flood our system, shutting down the learning centers and shuttling our resources to survival pathways. Shame literally robs the brain of the energy it needs to do the work of changing. And worse, when we feel shame, we hide from those parts of ourselves we're ashamed of. It's just too painful to look at them. And yet these are the parts that most need our attention. So what's the alternative? It's kind attention. First, kindness gives us the courage to look at those parts of ourselves we don't want to see. And second, kindness bathes our system with dopamine, turning on the learning centers of the brain and giving us the resources we need to change. True and lasting transformation requires kind attention. And I remembered back to the monk's words that mindfulness isn't just about attention, it's about kind attention. Remember, he said it's like these loving arms. It welcomes everything, even the messy, imperfect parts. So my colleagues and I developed a model of mindfulness that explicitly includes this attitude of kindness and our intention as well as our attention. All three parts working together synergistically. Put simply, mindfulness is paying attention with kindness. We used this model while working at the Veterans Hospital with a group of men with PTSD. And the intention was to cultivate this kind attention even for the seemingly unforgivable parts of ourselves. When we first began, I was shocked to learn the statistic that we lose more veterans to suicide each year than to combat. Our soldiers carry so much shame and pain. So again, the intention was to see how can we hold even this in kindness. There was one man in the group who never said a word, never looked up. He stared at the floor for 2 months. And then one day, he raised his hand and he said, "I don't want to get better. What I saw in the war, what I did, I don't deserve to get better." And he looked back down at the floor and he proceeded to tell us in great detail what he had seen and what he had done. And I can still feel the horror of what he shared and how his shame filled the room. And nervously, I looked up to see how the other men were responding, and there was no judgment on their faces. There was only compassion. They were willing to see who he truly was. And as he looked up and witnessed this compassion, you could see his face begin to soften. And in his eyes, there was hope. The possibility that he wasn't just his past actions, that he could choose differently now, that he could change. And this may be one of the most important things I've learned and what I most hope you'll take with you. It's that transformation is possible for all of us, no matter what. And it requires kind attention. And this kind attention takes practice. It takes lots of practice. So I want to close with a simple practice that continues to support me. Some years ago, I was going through a very difficult divorce, and I'd wake up every morning with this pit of shame in my stomach, this feeling like I was ruining my life and worse, my son's life. And my meditation teacher saw the shame and the pain, and she suggested an explicit practice of kind attention. She said, how about saying, I love you, Shauna, every day? And I thought to myself, no way. It just felt so contrived and inauthentic. She sensed my hesitation. She said, how about just saying, good morning, Shauna? And try putting your hand on your heart when you say it. It releases oxytocin. It's good for you, you know? She knew the science would win me over. So the next morning, I put my hand on my heart, took a breath. Good morning, Shauna. And it was kind of nice. You know, instead of that avalanche of shame and self-judgment, good morning, Shauna. So I continued to practice. And a month later, I went back to see her, and she said, how's it going? I said, it's actually been great, thank you. Wonderful, you've graduated, she said. Now, the advanced practice. You know what it is. Good morning, I love you, Shauna. So I went home. Next morning, put my hand on my heart, took a breath. Good morning, I love you, Shauna. Felt nothing. Maybe a little ridiculous, but definitely not love. But I kept practicing because, as we know, what you practice grows stronger. And then one day I put my hand on my heart, took a breath. Good morning. I love you, Shauna. And I felt it. I felt my grandmother's love. I felt my mother's love. I felt my own self-love. And I wish I could tell you that every day since then has been this miracle of self-love, and I never feel self-judgment or shame, and that is not true. But what is true is this pathway of kind attention has been established, and it's growing stronger every day. So I want to invite you to take a moment and put your hand on your heart, and let your eyes close. I think it's still kind of morning, actually. And maybe just say good morning silently, and if you're really brave, good morning, I love you. Notice how your body feels and see if you can bring a little more kindness, a little more spaciousness, and curiosity. Whatever you feel is okay. We welcome it with these loving arms of mindfulness. As you're ready, you can let some light come back in through your eyes and put your hand back in your lap. And I just want to thank you so much for your kind attention. Thank you.